Theresa May yesterday gave Russia's Vladimir Putin 24 hours to explain the Salisbury spy poisoning or face the wrath of Britain. She told MPs it was highly likely ex-MI6 double agent Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia were attacked with a Russian-produced nerve agent called Novichok. The PM revealed the chemical weapon used was designed by Russian scientists in the 1980s to kill thousands on the battlefield. Stunned MPs shouted shame in the Commons as she said its indiscriminate use in targeting former Russian spy Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia put the lives of innocent civilians at risk. Her comments come as the White House and U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson described the scandal as an outrage and vowed to stick by Britain. Mrs. May spoke out as investigators probing the attack in Salisbury, Wilts, descended on a village 6 miles away. Some arrived in protective suits and put a street in lockdown. THEPM concluded there were only 2 plausible explanations for what happened on March 4. She said, either this was a direct act by the Russian state against our country. Or the Russian government lost control of this potentially catastrophically damaging nerve agent and allowed it to get into the hands of others. Novichok agents are among the most deadly chemical weapons and were designed to even permeate NATO chemical protection suits. Reading out her devastating indictment, Mrs. May listed further evidence amassed by spy chiefs pointing at Russia being to blame. What is Novichok, and was the nerve agent used to poison ex-Russian spy Sergei Skripal? Novichok nerve agents were developed by the Soviet Union in the 1970s and 80s. Novichok, the Russian for newcomer, or newbie, is the name for a series of nerve agents developed by the Soviet Union in the 1970s and 80s. They are said to be the deadliest nerve agents ever created and reported to be 5 times more potent than the notorious VX gas. It is made of 2 relatively harmless materials which become fatal when mixed together, making it easier to transport under the radar. It is designed to be undetectable for any standard chemical security testing, Colonel Hamish de Breton Gordon told The Express. Novichok agents, dispersed as an ultra-fine powder rather than vapor, belong to the class of inhibitors called organophosphate-acetylcholinesterase. They prevent the normal breakdown of a neurotransmitter acetylcholine which, when it builds up, causes muscles to contract involuntarily. Because the victim's heart and diaphragm aren't functioning properly, this leads to respiratory and cardiac arrest. Those affected usually die from total heart failure or suffocation as copious fluid secretions fill their lungs. But even if they don't die from the nerve agent, the substance can also cause permanent nerve damage, leaving victims permanently disabled, Russian scientists have said. If Putin's ambassador fails to explain what happened to its lethal nerve agent stock within 24 hours, Mrs. May said she will declare it an unlawful use of force by Russia against the UK. Holding out little hope that Moscow will come up with a credible explanation, the PM told the Commons, "We have led the way in securing tough sanctions against the Russian economy. We must stand ready to take much more extensive measures." He added, "There can be no question of business as usual with Russia." It emerged that earlier, Boris Johnson refused to shake hands with Russia's ambassador to London Alexander Yakovenko when he summoned him to the Foreign Office at 3:45 p.m. Mr. Johnson issued the ultimatum instruction and told him of the British public's outrage. The PM's declaration, which senior Labour MP Yvette Cooper dubbed as bold, plunges Britain into the biggest crisis with Moscow since the end of the Cold War 28 years ago. NO10 refused to give further detail of what Mrs. May's threats would entail. SHE will report back to the Commons tomorrow afternoon. The Sun revealed last week how the PM ordered cabinet ministers to draw up a full-spectrum response to punish Russia if proof emerged that it is the culprit. Options include expelling Moscow's diplomats from London, asset freezes and travel bans for Kremlin-linked oligarchs, as well as reinforcing Britain's troops and jets on Europe's eastern flank. The PM and other cabinet ministers last night began phoning world leaders to build as broad a consensus as possible to condemn Vladimir Putin's regime, starting with French President Emmanuel Macron. In a major early breakthrough, U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson promised his support. He agreed the attack clearly came from Russia and said it would certainly trigger a response. The EU and NATO also pledged support. The Russian embassy kept silent on the PM's demand. But a Russian foreign ministry spokeswoman in Moscow called the Commons' statement a circus show. Cops and army teams yesterday entered Winterslow, Wilts, where investigators in protective suits loaded a white van onto a truck. It is thought the van may have been used to remove Mr. Skripal's BMW from Salisbury. Senior Tory Tom Tuggendit last night warned that England football fans in Russia for the World Cup could face revenge attacks for any sanctions from Kremlin thugs. Does Vladimir Putin have to sign off foreign killings? An inquiry into the death of ex-Russian spy Alexander Litvinenko concluded that his killing was probably, but does President Putin actually have the power to order targeted killings? Experts have said that under new Russian laws, President Putin has unprecedented powers to permit foreign killings abroad if the person is accused of extremism or terrorism. The laws, which were introduced in 2006, mean that the Russian president has the power to use the country's armed forces and special services outside of its borders to combat threats. Experts have said that the law could be used as an excuse for the Sergei Skripal poisoning. Natasha Kurt, a Russia specialist at King's College, London, told Euronews that if, as the law says, that anyone can be targeted who is designated as an enemy danger to the Russian state within or without Russia, then someone like Skripal could be targeted. Other countries like the UK and the US allow the use of military and special forces abroad to combat external threats. But other experts disagreed. John Russell, emeritus professor of Russian and security studies at the University of Bradford, said it was highly unlikely. And legal experts William Simons and Mikhail Antonov told Euronews the alleged poisoning in Salisbury would not fit the case of a counter-terrorist operation under RF Russian Federation law. British financier Bill Browder told The Times today he did not believe that an attempt to kill a former spy would have been made without Putin knowing. And it was revealed that President Putin issued an order for a passenger airliner to be shot down after he was told it could be carrying a bomb and heading for Russia. In a new documentary film called Putin, he said, "I told them, act according to the plan.